What's up? What's happening? Welcome here to Lacrosse Now. Travis Eldridge back with you. We have a loaded show for you this week. The Team USA roster for the 2023 World Championships on the men's side just announced here on Tuesday, so we're going to run you through that. I'll give you some thoughts on some surprising players not on that 23-man roster. And we have two terrific guests. Connor Fields, who's one of the hottest players in the NLL right now at the beginning part of the season. He'll join us to talk about the 3-0 Rochester Nighthawks. Not many people saw that coming, so we'll talk about the surprising 3-0 start with Connor. And the legend, Denver head coach Bill Tierney, joining me to talk about a whole bunch of stuff, but of course, the 2023 spring season for the Denver Pioneers. We'll look ahead to the spring with Coach T. Always a terrific guest, so make sure you stay tuned for that interview. But we're going to start with the newest news here today because it was just released here on Tuesday. The Team USA roster for the U.S. men's national team for the 2023 World Championships out in San Diego. And we're just going to run through this first, and then I'll give you some thoughts on some surprises that are players that were left off this 23-man list. First of all, before I even get to some of that, Coach John Danowski and company, Joe Amplo, Seth Tierney, Charlie Toomey, who had to make these selections, it is not easy because you could have probably picked about 60 different guys to be on this 23-man roster, and you probably wouldn't be wrong. But just some guys that I'm surprised weren't on the list. So let's start things off at the attack. We're going to run through the offense and go right through players who are going to be representing Team USA in these 2023 World Championships in San Diego. We'll start at attack. Rob Pannell, Matt Rambo, Kieran McArdle. Just three primary attack players listed on this roster. You then get to the attack/midfield. Charlie Bertrand, Brendan O'Neill, Michael Sowers rounding out that kind of attack/midfield unit. In the just standard midfielders, we've got Ryan Conrad, Connor Kelly, and Tom Schreiber, who will be making his second appearance at a World Championship. 4 short stick D-middies, and a very important part of the international game. We've got Zach Goodrich, Danny Logan, Jacob Richard to go along with Ryan Tarafenko. At the LSM position, a pair of guys, Michael Earhart, who's making his second World Championship appearance along with Liam Burns. On defense, Jesse Bernhardt, one of the elder statesmen of this team, making his third World Championship appearance. He and Rob Pannell, the only guys on this roster making their third appearance at a World Championships. Matt Dunn, JT Giles Harris, Jack Rowlett finishing things off on that defense. Just 4 close defensemen. Face-off position, TD Erlin and Trevor Baptiste. Baptiste making his second team. In goal, Blaze Reardon and Jack Kelly, who's also making his second team. Of course, everybody remembers Jack Kelly, the injury during the last World Championships in 2018. That's why John Galloway had to play essentially the majority of that tournament because Kelly went out with the injury. So really good to see him back in the mix. So that's the team, 23 players that will be representing Team USA this summer. Here are my thoughts. First of all, look, like I said at the top, what Coach Danowski and this coaching staff had to do is really, really difficult. The competition level at every one of these tryout weekends is extremely high. A couple of things that I took note of here. One are some of the obvious omissions from this list. Guys like Agrane Ament and Marcus Holman on the offensive end. Look, there aren't a lot of spaces there. So having Matt Rambo, Kieran McArdle, Rob Pannell, it just shrinks the number of spots that are at that end of the field. In my opinion, it's just me, my thought process. I have a feeling that it probably came down to picking Rob Pannell over Agrane Ament in this spot because they have very similar games. They have a similar role on the field. They are that ex-attackman type of player. And it looks as though that the coaching staff wanted to go with a more veteran presence there, have another guy along with Jesse Bernhardt on the defensive end that is now playing in their third World Championship event. So Rob Pannell gets the nod there, which, of course, I think kind of knocks Agrane Ament out. I think it probably came down to we can only take one of these two guys because when you only have 23 men on this roster, you can't have overlap. You got to have kind of one guy per role you need on the field, and it feels as though they went with Rob Pannell for that Ament type of role. So that's one of the explanations, I think, for there. Marcus Holman, another guy who was part of the last World Championship run, and I guess my surprise of him not being on this roster is because I think he played really well this summer. I think he has had he's been good throughout his pro career, but I felt like this summer he really elevated his game. So I'm a little surprised to see him not get another run. But once again, you have so many different options there, a lot of other guys that can do what Holman does. And I think Holman probably fell into that Kieran McCardle type of role. I think I also could have seen him run out of the midfield, but they opt with Bertrand, Sowers, and O'Neill, so it's hard to argue there. But that's another one that's maybe a bit surprising. Jack Kelly in goal, I really feel good for him getting this opportunity because it was the 2018 run. Like, Jack Kelly makes the team. He's on it. He's one of those two goalies. And it's a really tough position to make because there's only two guys that do it. And for him to have now another opportunity here at his second World Championships, hopefully he is healthy and ready to go because it looks like he could be a key guy in goal. I also think the Blaze Reardon spot is interesting. Look, at times with the Chaos, he has proven that he is the best goalie in the world. So that's not why it's interesting because I think he definitely gets the nod. But I love his versatility in goal in the international game where being able to come out and get up and out quickly and having to be a little bit more versatile in that goal, I think is going to be important for this team. So I think he fits perfectly for that role. Also got to taste the international experience being part of the Sixes team at the World Games this summer. So I like the goalie spot. Joe Nardella obviously would have been the face-off guy you thought might be in the mix along with TD and Trevor, but we found out that he had an injury during that tryout process earlier this month that not only is knocking him out for the rest of the NLL season, but also the PLL season as well, and that obviously would take him out of the running for this World Championship team next summer. So that's a real bummer with Nardella because it was an injury last time around that prevented him from really being part of the tryout process as well. So I'm really bummed for Joe there, but I obviously think that Team USA will be in good hands with TD Erlin and Trevor Baptiste, two of the best collegiate faceoff guys we've ever seen at that position. The only other question mark I have is and it's one that's being brought up by a lot of people, and with the optics of it, it's not surprising that it's one of the things being brought up, is that Brendan O'Neill is the college guy on this roster. We've seen this both with the Olympic basketball team for USA, and we've also seen it now with the men's World Championship team for lacrosse. You try to bring a guy who's maybe going to be part of that next generation. Ned Crotty is a perfect example from a couple of World Championships ago when he was kind of the young guy on the team. But they put in Brendan O'Neill in that attack/midfield role, which is something he's played at Duke. So I think it's comfortable. He's comfortable playing both at attack and midfield in this position. But I think Connor Schellenberger and Sam Handley are the guys that maybe were also in the mix for that spot. I mean, Connor Schellenberger, what he's done here at Virginia the last couple of years has been elite. And he's a guy that I think can play both attack and midfield. And we've seen Sam Handley at an elite level at Penn play both attack and midfield. He did both last year. We had so many questions about whether he was going to be an attacker or a midfielder on the All-American list because he was either a first-team attackman or a first-team midfielder. So he obviously has shown that versatility as well. So I was interested to see Brendan O'Neill on this list instead of the other two. But you also can't argue with the fact that Brendan O'Neill was the guy on this U21 team for Team USA that helped them win gold this past summer. So he knows the international rules because he just played them this summer. And Schellenberger and Handley weren't part of that group just because of the age group situation. So I wonder how much that played into it in deciding to take Brendan maybe over the other guys. But once again, as I said, you can pick nits over any one of these 23 guys and find another 23 dudes that could make up a team that would be considered the best in the world entering these next World Championships. I guess only time will tell, and really it'll be how do they fare against Canada and the Haudenosaunee Nationals, but mainly against Canada. Do you win gold? If you win gold, it's a success, and the team will be looked as the right team, right 23 guys that went. If you don't win gold, then there'll be some second guessing, but that's what you sign up for when you decide you're going to pick this team and you're going to coach this team and take them to the World Championships. Obviously, a very important one on home soil in San Diego. So those just a couple of thoughts on this list. Talent all over the place, and those tryouts certainly talent laden again. I'll be interested to see how this team kind of comes together over the course of the next several months leading up to the World Championships this summer. So let's switch gears. Let's go inside here. Quick NLL recap for you as we look ahead to a kind of light week coming up here in the NLL. No games coming up this weekend. A couple of games to keep your eye on the weekend of the new year. I just want to circle one, a game to watch in the light 3-game slate we have coming up in this next week. December 30th, Buffalo versus Halifax. I wouldn't be surprised if these are the best two teams in the East at the end of the year. Bandits come in 1-1. Thunderbirds are going into that one 2-0. Thunderbirds just hung 20 goals on New York this past week. Halifax has gotten some terrific contributions from the ageless wonder, Cody Jamieson, Ryan Benesh, Randy Stotts, Graham Hossack have all been terrific, as you would expect. So I really like that Buffalo-Halifax game. So if you have to pick one game over this holiday week plus, week and a half, make sure you watch that December 30th Buffalo-Halifax game on the NLL slates. But the story of the year so far in the National Lacrosse League has been the Rochester Nighthawks 3-0 start. They are the only 3-0 team in the NLL so far this year. They're led by Connor Fields, who obviously was part of the Buffalo Bandits last year, had the heartbreaking loss in the Game 3 of the NLL Finals. He was then left unprotected. Eventually, throughout this offseason, is traded to the Rochester Nighthawks after being selected in the expansion draft. Doesn't have to travel far from Buffalo to Rochester, but there weren't a lot of expectations for the Nighthawks this year, and they are surprising everyone. Off to that 3-0 start, had a chance to catch up with Connor earlier today.
This segment of Lacrosse Now is brought to you by Watch Dingo.
So to talk about the hot start for the Rochester Nighthawks, we've got Connor Fields in his first year with Rochester. Connor, I'm going to set this up this way. Fill in the blank for me. The start to this season for you guys with Rochester has been what?
I think it's been what we've been pushing to achieve, all of training camp. I think going into this year, I think everyone's seen the preseason rankings, right? And the odds for teams to win it, right? And I think we're at the bottom of every list. And, not that that's, what we play for, but, I think that helped motivate us through this whole training camp and off season. And, I think just going into this season, not that we're going out there, trying to prove people wrong. We're just going out there to go 1-0 each week. And we know what we have in the locker room. So I feel like, it's been a really fun way to start the season.
Yeah, I mean, you look at what you guys have done, wins over Georgia, Toronto, and Albany, and I think the Toronto one for a lot of people stands out because a lot of people, as you expected the preseason, picking Toronto to be one of those teams at top the East, and you guys got them. What has been the key for you guys in kind of putting this together at the beginning part of the year?
Yeah, I think it's just, it's a team mentality. And, I think it's all credits due to, the management and our coaching staff for the culture they're really building here. And I know that's something that they mentioned to me, when I first was talking to them after, the trade happened this summer, was just, the culture they're building. And they know, winning's not easy in this league, but, they feel like they have the right culture to do it. And I think that is 100% correct. And, I feel like everyone in the locker room is bought in. And, we're just playing for each other. We're just focusing on 1 week at a time. I think that's a big thing for us, is just trying to go 1-0 each week. So far it's been working.
I know you've talked about what it feels like to be left unprotected by Buffalo getting into this expansion draft. And look, nobody likes that, but you also understand the amount of talent that team also has. So that's you're kind of up in the air in terms of where you're going to be. What was that feeling like this offseason, going through being left unprotected and then not knowing where you're going to play?
Yeah, it was it's a tough feeling to describe, right? I think, obviously we lost in Game 3 of the championship, and then a week later, the protected lists come out, right? So it's kind of a double punch to the gut right there. And, I'd be lying, like I said, if I said it was sat with me well. I was definitely disappointed, and I felt like I played to the best of my abilities, with the role I was given. But at the same time, just like you said, I think you look at that team last year, and from the top of the roster down, it was a very talented roster. So I respect their decision, and obviously they made the decision that they felt was best for the team. So for me personally, everyone always asked, do you think about that in games? And, that's the last thing I think about in a game, right? I'm just focused on winning that game. But, I feel like it helped me a lot in preparation for this season. It just, was a motivating factor behind my, working out and preparing for the season, and, was able to put on 15 pounds this off season. So I feel like, I'm in, the best shape of my life right now.
And I think, I love where you've ended up with Rochester, because I think throughout your professional career, like, people have forgotten what it's like when you're one of those number one options on the offense, because even outside, you're on a loaded Archers offense these past couple of years. And so, there's lots of options, and you're great, but there's also tons of other options. What's it been like to be back to being one of those top couple of options and being expected to be a point producer night in and night out?
Yeah, I feel like that's the environment that everyone, thrives to play in, right? And for me, I think everything happens for a reason. And, I was so excited, when I got traded, to Rochester. I feel like it's just from my first conversation, with Dan Carey to, Coach Hazen, everyone, they seem like they have, full confidence in me. And, they were talking, when we were talking about, where I might fit in on this team, it was a lot of it had to do with, kind of with what you're saying there, just, ball carrier and, just going out there and making plays. That's kind of what, they wanted me to do. And I think when you have that type of confidence from, your coaches and your management and the guys around you, right, in the locker room, I think, it just makes you play that much better as a player. So, I'm fortunate in every team I played for, right, with the talent around me. And I think that holds true with Rochester. We have a really loaded team as well. But, I've always been under the impression, I guess, and always thought you're not that you're, I guess, kind of say you could be as good as, the opportunity you're given. So, I feel like the opportunity I was, given here was, spectacular, and, I'm just trying to make the most of it.
So I think you're an easy guy to root for, because you look at your career, and I feel like there's been so many times that you've been kind of doubted, whether it's like you being this skinny kid when you get on campus at UAlbany, and you're still skinny by the time you got your senior year, but you bulked up a little bit. But seriously, do you have a chip on your shoulder that you've just carried through all these times where people are like, I don't know if that guy's going to be able to do what you're doing now? Yeah,
I think, like you said, I think I was maybe 140 pounds soaking wet going into college. It was, I don't know, I'm thankful Coach Mar recruited me, but I have to have that conversation with them later. But no, I think, I definitely, play with a chip on my shoulder. And like I said, it's not only just playing with it, but, all those different things are, things that motivate me to, strive to be better, to, work out, as hard as I can, to be in the best shape of my life going into, each season. I feel like those are all factors that play into it. And, for me, like I said, just with all that. And then, obviously, like you mentioned before, with how last season ended, not winning the championship, then being unprotected, those were just all, even more motivating factors to be my best, next year. So I feel like, that's kind of how I am. And, I definitely go out there and, play with that chip on my shoulder. That's for sure.
So I don't know if when you guys play Buffalo, but you play them twice in 3 weeks, January 20th and February 4th, a couple of matchups. What are the emotions going to be like playing against that team?
Yeah. I think there's definitely gonna be, some emotions, but, at the end of the day, I feel like it's just like we've been focusing on, each week. It's just going 1-0 every week. I think, if that game, is the farthest thing about me, right? It's really about, us as a team, playing them as a team. And, our goal is to go out and, win that game. So, I'll definitely, I'll definitely be prepared for that game, as well as, try to be prepared for every game. But yeah, I think going into that game, that's going to be, probably the last thing on my mind. And I'm just going to go out there and just try to play loose and, do whatever, I can to help our team win.
Yeah, they also just happen to be a really good team in the East, so it's a team that you probably could use to beat a couple of times there if you want to get to where you want to go.
Exactly. Yeah, it'll definitely be a good test for us. I know they're a great team, and I think every team we played so far has been a tremendous team. That's the thing about the NLL is every team's so good. It's so hard to get a win in this league. So being 3-0, obviously we're happy, but we're not satisfied either.
Talking about some of the talent you've played with, I mentioned the Archers, and I mean, you're on a team with Marcus Holman and Will Manny and Grant Ament and Tom Schreiber, and Matt Moore just joined you guys. What did you learn about the experience of playing with all that talent on offense over the last couple of years?
It's definitely there's a lot of talent on that team, right? And just like the NLL, the PLL is really the same way, right? You look at every roster and they're all loaded. It's tough to win a game in that league as well, but I think just being able to adapt, I think would be the first takeaway I got from playing with the Archers so far these past couple of years is just whether the ball's in my stick or not in my stick, I try to always be a threat, and those are the guys you named, right, are guys who are really easy to play with. So I was very fortunate in that aspect where, they're great players and they all put the team first, which is great too. So, I think there's a lot that I learned and from Coach Bates as well, I think, but just I feel like in any team, one of the best abilities is, the ability to, adapt and play where you're needed. So, that's kind of one thing I learned.
All right, I'll get you out of here on this because you got a big day coming up here in a week or so. You're getting married coming up on New Year's Eve. Is lacrosse involved at all in the wedding?
I think Coach Mar's bringing the mini nets. No, no, we're keeping it out this time. This is actually her jersey behind me. Laura played lacrosse, at Albany as well. So. It's definitely not to be put past us, but no, it's not being involved in this wedding.
Okay, yeah, because when I was talking with Marcus and Alex, they said, like, Alex was like, no, Marcus, you can't bring lacrosse to the wedding. So I just wanted to know, lacrosse weddings, you got 2 players, but that's probably the smart move. Keep the sticks out of it until like the day after.
Yeah, I think Laura was giving me the same type of talk. She said that's something to focus on another day. I completely agree, but yeah, we're really excited.
Well, Connor, congratulations ahead of time on getting married. Enjoy the big day, and we can't wait to see you continue to compete with Rochester. It's been a lot of fun so far this year. Good luck the rest of the way.
Thank you so much, and yeah, thank you again for having me on. It was a blast.
Yeah, for sure. Thanks, man. We've got Denver head coach Bill Tierney joining us now. And Coach, we're talking here just on the edge of December, getting ready for this 2023 season. As you look back to the fall and the semester's kind of come to a close, so what are your takeaways from this fall for your team?
Well, first and foremost, we and I told the team this after our last practice, it was the most enjoyable fall that I've had in 42 years of coaching. This group, we're finally off of the COVID hangover, as we call it. It's the first kind of, even though last year was a normal year, we really feel like that we're back to, our culture's back. We got great leadership. Our 4 captains are just amazing guys. And, and you've heard the cliche before, but it's true. We're the best teams overall are ones that run themselves. And this group of seniors and this group of guys is just taking on that challenge and just has been an amazing fall for us. So we weren't sure going into the fall. We're still not sure. Obviously, anything that happens in the fall is either an unexpected nightmare or a pleasant surprise. And for us, for our case, with our young offense, it's been a pleasant surprise. So, but just being able to go out there, the guys, the group that I call the COVID kids, the juniors now, this is really their first year of being really involved. And in our case, the first year of really having a chance. So we've got 4 or 5 midfielders, a couple of attackmen, that really haven't had a chance, that are going to have to step up for us, but I think are really chomping at the bit to get that done.
I think that sentiment is echoed like across the country. I feel like every coach we've spoken to this fall, you can just feel there's like a little bit more happiness and sense of normalcy, because it's like, oh, we're just playing lacrosse. We don't have it's almost like there's been a weight lifted off everybody's shoulders, because there's not the other stuff to worry about, and you can just worry about what's going on the field.
No doubt about it. And what you didn't know, and as I said, these juniors, when they were freshmen, they were 24/7 in masks, in individual rooms. We were working out in cohorts. They didn't even meet our seniors until February of that year. And so, now they're free, and they recognize some of the things. We're disappointed with the end of our season last year, and a couple of tough losses throughout the journey. But, this is kind of the birds have been let free, and they're going to take advantage of it. And our freshmen, we think is a really good group, they don't know any better. I heard a great quote the other day that, when you get freshmen come in, they'll follow the lead, whether it's good or bad. And so, with this great leadership that we have, and the juniors feeling like they're a part of it now, the freshmen, they don't know any better. So they've just jumped on board, and it's just a great group of kids. As I said, I haven't enjoyed a fall like I had this fall in a long, long time.
Let's talk about the leaders on this team, because I thought it was interesting, and maybe says something about the team makeup this year, that your captains are short stick D midi, a couple of guys from your defense, and your face-off guy. Not having an offensive guy in the mix, what's that kind of say about what the makeup is about this team, and what you're looking for out of the offense this year?
Yeah, it's a great question. And it number one, it shows where the experience is. You got Alex Stathakis, we believe one of the best face-off guys in the country. Jake Edinger, who was out all fall. He had knee surgery. He's ready to go. Adam Hanglin's been a two-time captain now. And then Jack DiBenedetto, who I think has really taken, a great lead position. He developed last year into an all Big East defenseman, and they've taken over. I don't pick captains. Our team does, and we always do it after the last game of the year, which, unless you win a national championship, means you're picking it right after you've lost your final game. There's only two kinds of teams that win their final game: either the national champ or somebody who's had a crappy season. So, so it's usually with a downturn, but it's also a good perspective for the guys. So they voted on the captains. It doesn't mean we're devoid of leadership at the offensive end. We've got one of the greatest young men I've ever coached in JJ Silstrop at the offensive end. And JJ is going to lead that offense. He's the only returning, guy who played all the time. He's been battling injuries over his career. He got through last year healthy, and so besides JJ, we've got some other guys who have played some, Richie Connell is a transfer from Richmond, had some great games, had 4 goals against Ohio State. Noah Manning is going to be, people are going to hear his name this year. He was a freshman last year. And then we at the midfield, we love Mick Kelly and Michael Lampert, along with a lot of those juniors and freshmen that are going to fill into those other spots. So the leadership at the offensive end is going to come from, JJ's experience and age, Richie's kind of experience and ability to stretch a defense. And then Noah, being a sophomore now, really a freshman who can put the ball in the goal, and the rest is going to be fine as long as we continue to play great defense with all those leaders back there. So much experience. We got, I talked about Hanglin and DiBenedetto. We've also got Malik Sparrow and AJ Mercurio, so 4 of them have been 4-year starters with Poles. We're much better at the shorty spot with Casey Wilson and a couple other guys that mentioned Jake Edinger. We got a good freshman in, and Luke Tolson's a sophomore. So we feel good about it, but the question's always going to be for our team is, how many goals can we score? Who's going to put the ball in the net? And we're going to have to be a little creative with that at first until the guys get used to their roles.
So you walk into this year, and I feel like maybe the transition's been over the last couple of years, but you watch the run Georgetown's gone on in the Big East, and it's almost like they've kind of taken over that hunted role, and you guys are back to being the hunter, where it's been a while for Denver, and even for you in your run at Princeton. It's been a while since you've been the hunter. What does that perspective feel like as a coach and this program?
Yeah, it's a great question. It reminds me a lot of after in 2004 when Princeton when we went to our last Final Four, and then we got up through 2009 where we felt like we were back. We lost a tough game in the quarterfinals to Cornell, but I felt like when I left after that season, the cupboard was full, and I feel like that it's a similar thing here. We have pretty high expectations for our team. We're very disappointed that of our results, since the championship, especially at the ends of seasons and Big East tournaments. But at the end of the day, it's a lot more challenging now than it was 25, 30 years ago. And there's a lot of good teams. What Kevin Warren has done at Georgetown has been amazing, and they've really taken advantage of the transfer portal and the fifth-year guys, and they're great coaches. And so that you're absolutely right. We are looking up at them right now, and just like they were with us 5 years ago. And so it's going to be a challenge. Villanova, our conference is really good. Villanova's really good. Marquette's coming on. You got new coaches at Providence and St. John, so it's going to be a challenge. But we don't bring guys into Denver to not be ready to go and challenge people that are the best out there.
Speaking of challenges, you guys challenged yourself here in the fall, scrimmaging a couple of scrimmages, including ones with Canada. What did you learn from those?
Yeah, it's when Matt Brown came to me, Matt's the head coach of the Canadian national team. So when he came to me in the summer and asked if that were something we would want to take on, to be honest, I wasn't really sure. We haven't played a fall game in a long time. Our seniors now were freshmen when we went to Cortland and played Syracuse in the fall, and that was a great game. But then COVID, and all the stuff that's happened kept us out of fall games. So I was a little worried about it. You're playing against. We have an important freshman class. We have a group that's rebounding. We have this offensive group that's all pretty new, and now you're playing against some of the best men in the world playing lacrosse. And you look across the way and you just look at who they're putting on the field, and you kind of go, "Oh my God, what did we do?" And so the result ended up starting some of this newfound confidence. We lost, we were up 5-4 and then down 6-5 going into the fourth. It was half of their team, thankfully, not the whole group, because St. Joe's played the other half of their team after us. And but we put a lot of our guys in that had not played, and were some of our backup guys. And the Canadians just came and got us in the fourth quarter. We lost 10-6, which if you had told me that going in, I would have been really happy. And so walking off, I've never been a fan of being happy after losses, but keeping in perspective who we played, when we were playing them, and where we were playing them, felt pretty good. And we had actually held out our starting goalie, Jack Thompson, because I was afraid of what might happen. And then, Malcolm Kleben went in, and he and Timmy McNamara split the game, and they did a great job. So it kind of gave us some confidence in some areas that we weren't sure we'd have confidence in. And so pretty proud of that game. And then later on in the evening, we played St. Joe's.
Yeah, I mean, talk about a learning experience to play against a team that, I mean, loaded with the number of PLL guys and international guys that they have. That's an experience you don't get many other places in this sport.
That's for sure. Some years back, twice in a row, we played the U.S. team down in Florida. And one year we did really well. We lost in overtime. And then the other year, I think they beat us like 24-3 or something. So it was a butt kicking. But, it awakens your guys into understanding, just like the move from high school to college, from understanding that when you're in college, you think it's the pinnacle of the sport. And then all of a sudden, you're going against Brody Merrill, for God's sakes, with Teed at the other end of the field. Holy crap, this is going to be a long day.
Yeah, for sure. I do want to talk about the new addition back on your staff with Matt Neufeld as a volunteer assistant. What's it like to bring him back into the fold now, a guy who obviously was part of your program?
Well, first of all, we were blessed to have Matt for 1 year after his 4-year career at Maryland. Thankfully, he had a year because he blew his knee out. He had a year left, so he came here. And, to be honest, Matt didn't have time to assimilate himself into all of our defensive rules and how we played. But his unique style really helped us that year. We had Dylan Gaines and Dylan Johnson and Squires. And he knew had this, if I had him as a freshman, the way he played as a fifth-year guy, I probably would have killed him. But he had a unique way of picking off passes and getting the ball off the ground. He would get us at least 2 turnovers a game by outrunning somebody to the end line. And he was just really a slick player. When we hired him, when we got this opening with Eric Adamson moving to Lafayette, we thought about a few guys, but when Matt showed interest, to me, it was a perfect time to have a guy come in with this really experienced defense to show them some of those extra things that they do. We feel like maybe we've become a little robotic on defense. Maybe we need to do some things a little differently and try to pick off passes or, use those unique skill sets that he had to, help our individuals who certainly are not lacking playing experience. All 4 of them have played a lot of lacrosse, the Poles, to teach them some of this other stuff, these little tricks about how you cover a certain kind of guy or, setting people up or, or not always sliding and things like that, that Noof has taught our guys on an individual basis. And so, that's really good news. It also now it leaves Matt Brown alone at the offensive end because, we got John Gallant, who's a phenomenal defensive coordinator. We got Matt Neufeld. And if Matt Brown ever sees me coming over to his end, he just puts his hand up and say, please, no, stay where you are. So, our offense is in great hands with Matt. And I'm confident in that. But having Matt Neufeld on our staff brings a unique kind of new look for the Denver defense.
All right, so I want to finish up with this because I think we're in a unique spot in the sport where it feels like there's a lot of movement, and there continues to be. And you've watched this throughout your career. When you look at the pro game and all the movement we've seen there, and internationally the push for the Olympics and the different changes we've seen in college lacrosse, where do you see the sport right now? How do you define where we're at?
I love where we're at. We've been kind of waiting for this, starting my 42nd college season and then along with 7 high school seasons. Been around in some people's minds way too long, but what it's allowed me to do is watch this growth many years. And many years ago, we would always say in 5 years, in 10 years, we'll see the growth. And, some years we did, some years it would plateau, other years it would kind of drop down. Obviously, men's Division I lacrosse in college is the one area that's been stifled If you look at in a way, it's been stifled, and you can blame Title IX. I don't blame Title IX. It's just a fact of life. I have two daughters that took advantage of Title IX and played Division I sports, and I'm thankful for it. The women's game is phenomenal, but it is a certain rule that makes us have to deviate a little bit and do what we've got to do. Where the growth has happened at Division I is in roster sizes. We've gone from 32 guys to 52 guys in a matter of, not a lot of time. But with that, with the growth that, I'm the president of our IMLCA, and when we spent 3 months discussing the transformation committee of the NCAA and where it's going to go and all that stuff. And we still don't know that. Middle of January, we'll know more than we know now. But the point is that as you start to look and talk to people in the know, the one thing they say is that you gotta keep your mind on the grassroots level of the game if you want it to continue to grow. So, with Mark Riccio coming into the USA Lacrosse, one of the first things he's done, and we're thankful for that, is he's reached out to us in men's lacrosse and said, we want to partner. We want to be together with you, and that's been a really good thing for he and I as personally and as representatives of our group. And so we talk about the grassroots level at the USA Lacrosse side of this thing. And then all the way up now through high school and prep school. You got the PGs, you got the club game, you got the sixes, you got NLL, you got PLL, who's doing, both those groups are doing phenomenal jobs of doing something that we hadn't been able to do, which was to get us to be regularly on TV, because ultimately that's going to be the challenge. And what the PLL people, the Rabels, have done is getting us into the mainstream look. When you go to an NLL game in Denver, they started out before the game with 12 motorcycles coming out on the floor, and it's a show. It's a fireworks show. It's crazy. But what that's done is brought in more people who may not be your normal, blue blood Baltimore lacrosse fan, but more people who know of the game. And so I think we've finally broken through that hardcore plateau that the game always seemed to get a little above and then drop down a little below. I think through all the efforts of all those things, the sixes, the Olympic movement, all the things. The women's game is phenomenal now, and people are moving towards the visualizing and seeing on TV throughout the summer. So I think we've broken through. I don't see us going backwards, but the key thing that's happening right now is everybody's got to go hand in hand. The IMLCA, the IWLCA, the USA Lacrosse, the NLL, the PLL, the Olympic movement. We've all got to get together and hold hands a little bit more than has happened in the past, and get the realization that this is only going to grow if we educate and incorporate young people into the game and make it fun.
And that I feel like is the key. And you're right. I think we've gotten to the point where people are seeing it now for the first time, and it's an exciting game. It's fun to watch. And then you keep getting people to play it, and they continue to be able to watch it at the highest level on TV, and that's where it feels like everything can continue to grow.
Yeah, and so social media is whether we like it or not, and believe me, there are lots I don't like about it, but it's one of those things that you can't ignore, and everybody's doing a good job with that. And it's an important part of college lacrosse. It's an important part of pro lacrosse to stay on social media, because whether we like it or not, as I explained to my team last week, they think email is, the Pony Express. And when I said that to them, then I realized I'm getting blank stares. So I said, how many of you know what the Pony Express was? Of the 51 guys, 3 raised their hand. So I had to do a history lesson and explain to them why they consider emails what we used to consider riding on a horse from, Manhattan to LA. And so we've got to remember that this is how these kids are. What impresses them is some stuff that old time coaches like myself, I just shake my head at. The music that we get when a kid sends us a video, for a lot of young coaches, they think that's pretty cool. We just turn that music off, but it's a new world. I just hope that the game continues to grow in a way that it should grow, not become just this fun thing, this lax bro, cool guy thing that it has been some of the years in the past. And I think that whether it's Olympics or sixes or indoor or outdoor or world championships, that people that don't know will say, oh, that's lacrosse. I know what that is now. And, seeing, some of the PLL games in the summer where they've had football guys on and people, actors on and people talking about it. And, everybody's saying what a great game it is. We're on the move.
For sure. And Coach, we can't wait to see you guys back on the move this spring as we get ready for that 2023 season. As always, we appreciate all your time. Thanks so much. And we'll catch up here soon.
Thanks so much for having me on, and we'll see you again soon.
So a huge thank you, of course, to Connor Fields and Denver coach Bill Tierney for taking some time. Always enjoy my time catching up with Coach Tierney. And you always got to get his insight on something just going on in lacrosse world overall, because there are very few people that have his perspective on everything, considering what he did at Princeton and then taking his talents out to Denver to help kind of build up that Pioneers program and bring the game out west, winning a national championship with the Pios a couple of years ago. So always great to get his perspective on things as well. So thanks so much to Coach Tierney for the time. But that's all the time we have for you here this week. Merry Christmas to everybody who celebrates. Happy Hanukkah, which is going on right now, to people who celebrate that as well. We hope you enjoy your holiday weekend here. We'll be back with you. New episode next Tuesday, so make sure you stay locked in, whether it's on YouTube or wherever you get the podcasts, to stay locked in for a new edition of Lacrosse Now next Tuesday. But as for now, Merry Christmas, Happy Hanukkah, Happy Holidays, and we'll see you next week.